All right. So welcome to this session. Uh, so today is the today is 6th of October, 2024, and we're gonna be doing a market snapshot. So once again, I'm Jofex, and I'm a forex trader based in Uganda. So we are gonna be doing a market snapshot, and we see how the week will be moving like. So remember to hit that subscribe button and let's grow this community. So if you have a comment, drop it in the comment section and we shall be going through it. So to start with, we're gonna start by reviewing how NFP was like, and considering pairs like gold, the pairs that are represented with XAUUSD, we saw NFP selling, and for those pairs that were represented with USD XXX, we saw them more buying. So this one implies that NFP was positive for the dollar, and literally NFP will always respect market structure, right? And that's why most of the times with NFP, me and my community, most of the times we are right. Like 80% of the times we are right about the decision of NFP. So to start with, I'm gonna be showing you the move for NFP. So NFP started at this point. NFP started at this point, and then we pushed all the way up to this point down there. So it was a nice move, and there was no manipulation. So that was it. And for pairs like GBPUSD, you also see we had a sell. And for pairs like USD JPY, we had a smart move to the upside. So that was NFP. So it was positive. And this week we're gonna be hopefully. Let me first check. We could be having CPI. We could be having CPI. I'm not yet sure. I'd not yet checked, by the way. Let's check. Let's check. So we also have FOMC on Wednesday, and we have core CPI on Thursday. So watch out for that. And we're gonna be trading it live here on YouTube. All right. So to start with, I'm gonna be doing my insight on gold. Literally, I'm gonna be starting from the beginning of last week, where we started from, such that we can be sure about the real direction of the market. So last week closed at this point here, and we opened right about this point. So if we try to reflect from last week's market snapshot, we expected the price to react off this zone, which really happened as planned, right? If you can really recall. So that's how gold reacted, and we had expectations of it pushing to this zone, and then we look for buys. Now, taking buys, we had this liquidity grab over here, and with this liquidity grab, definitely we expected sales, and of course the sales happened targeting this liquidity here. and then this was a selling opportunity following the fact that we had liquidity lying here, and then we also had a liquidity grab about here. So from that point, we expected price to come back all the way to this point, but then the optimal selling point was this one, since we had that other block over there, and that's what we were waiting for all along, right? So from that point, that's how the sales started kicking in, and of course NFP followed the same. And now at this point, because we are looking at gold on the bigger picture, and gold has been ranging sincerely, gold has been ranging, and of course we expect gold to take out this high. We expect gold to be taking out this high. So preferably for this week, we might look at gold bouncing off this zone, yeah, and pushing all the way to the upside. So this is the projection for now. This is the major projection, looking at gold pushing all the way to the upside, and this point here will be the first target, and then the extreme high. So looking at price coming back to this buying zone, how could we how can we be taking some trades over here? So looking at price pushing back all the way to this point, we could look at some short-term sales, following the fact that if price gave us a liquidity grab around this point, let's mark it. So if that was a liquidity grab, this simply means that we have a high probability selling zone around here. Now that we expect price to come back to this demand zone, so we are looking at price taking out this inducement over here, and that is liquidity, of course. So as we expect price to take out that inducement, we shall be trying to look for sales at this point, targeting this zone. And now it will depend on price reaction on either side. Okay, so the best buying zone is this demand zone, and of course we shall be watching out for it, and that is what we are looking at. Yes, please. Right. What? Okay, what if price closes above this order block? So it will depend entirely, because if price closes above this area, definitely we shall be not expecting gold to come back to this zone, right? So price, that one will simply imply that price is now reacting from possibly a fair value gap, if at all it is available here. There is no clear fair value gap here, because I don't see price reacting from it. So anyway, we have higher chances of coming back here, because looking all the way from this side, the only imbalance I can mark is here, this one. And looking from that point all the way to this side, I don't see any reaction from that imbalance. So I still have more hope that price can come back to that area, and in that manner we shall look at buying, because gold is in an uptrend. Okay, gold is in an uptrend. So remember, this one was an internal structure here. In fact, this was some, I consider it a minor pullback, because here we had a break of structure, we had a change of character here, and then a break of structure down here. So we would have expected to have a choke here, but price instead created for us a liquidity grab, And therefore, for now, we look to confirm a break of structure here. In fact, it is a change of character. Yes, please. Okay, so as long as we don't have any candle closing above this point, as long as we don't have any candle closing above this area here, then it is still considered a liquidity grab. Now looking at all these candles here, looking at all these candlesticks closing below this range, so this one is considered liquidity grab, right? And that's why this area was a high probability uh, selling zone, because we have liquidity grab, so we expected this reaction from this area. Definitely the same concept is applied here to expect this minor sales. All right, because once the area grabs liquidity, then it has more chances of pushing price. All right, so on gold, that's what I'm looking at this moment, and then we might have to see serious buys, because overall gold, we are in an uptrend, right? Overall we are in an uptrend. Let me show you from this side. So gold is still pushing to the upside, okay, because we see it reacting on the H4 demand zone, right? So we are expecting a push to the upside targeting this point. So that is the perspective on gold. And if you look closely, you begin to see rejections as price reached that demand zone. Okay, you can see these kind of rejections here. So once we have this kind of rejection, definitely we see higher chances of price pushing to the upside, considering the fact that price grabbed the liquidity from that point and then came to react from this area. Okay, so we still have chances to push to the upside. All right, so that is gold. I'm gonna be looking for buys for the whole of next week, depending on the projection. Now, looking at other pairs, we shall be looking at pairs like GBPUSD. Right, GBPUSD. So, in case you have questions, drop them in the chat section. I'm gonna be going through them. So, looking at GBPUSD, GBPUSD confirmed some sales as far as 15 minutes time frame is concerned. I'm going to be showing you how. So looking at this, initially we had this uptrend, and that's what we were looking at last week. So we had the change of character down here. So with this change of character, we again confirmed the break of structure, and after confirming a break of structure, definitely price gave us another push to the upside, giving us the change of character, and then again pushed to the downside. Now, as the change of character happened, we happened to sweep previous week high. Okay, this is a previous week high. So don't be surprised when you see me talking about the previous week's high. It is also part of SMC. Remember, SMC is based on liquidity. It's not based on order blocks and the fair value gaps. It's based on liquidity. So that was previous week high, and definitely this is sweeping the previous week high. It fuels sales. Now after this sweep, definitely we would have expected to have another break of structure on the upside here, and definitely our inducement was down here. So if this was the inducement, we were trying to look for sales targeting this inducement, and that's why you see I was trying to look for supply zones to target the inducement, right? So this zone became high probability here because it collected some liquidity around this point. So it became high probability. So looking for sales, you see. So from that point, price pushed all the way to the downside, hence confirming another change of character. All right. Now, what does this one signify? So definitely, you need to switch to higher time frames the moment you begin to see change of character happening repeatedly. So if I switch to H4, we want to really see why is price trying to push to the downside. Okay, it may look kind of disorganized, but I will try to be as direct as possible. So looking at this, we definitely see that this pair was creating this structure here, which can be called a breakout structure, and that is on the higher time frame definitely. And what does that imply? It implies that we could be also anticipating for such a thing happening at this point. All right. So for that case, this one becomes our low, and of course we have this nice order block here, and definitely we could expect price to bounce off this zone, and this is a possible swing trade in case price doesn't break below this area. All right. We could look at GBPUSD pushing to the upside, definitely pushing all that range, right? And definitely this week I'm watching out for buys on GBPUSD. We are watching out for buys on GBPUSD this week, considering this concept here. All right. Feel free to inquire because at the same time we are learning, right? So that's what we are looking at. Definitely. Remember, I told you price moves like this every time. Every time price moves like this. Now, if price breaks below this low, it becomes a change of character, and definitely we begin to see price moving like this. So it will be repeated every time, because if you again check down here, you can again see the same structure happening like that. So we also expect the same to be happening this time round. Otherwise, we could look at price taking out this low and then giving us what we call a change of character. So it is a possibility that we could look at as well, but for now, this is a demand zone. So I think I'm done with the GBPUSD. Maybe to show you the most recent structure on the lower time frame, I mean the 15 minutes time frame, because that is the time frame we use as day traders. So looking at all this, we saw price taking out this liquidity here, which we look at as inducement, and definitely we had this candle here which acted as an order block, because shifting it all the way from this point will definitely give us this one as a valid one. So NFP respected this zone, and we saw price pushing all the way to the downside, giving us a breakout structure. Now, what am I looking at regarding the most recent data? So this is inducement, if you understand what inducement is. So if this is inducement, definitely I'm looking at price pushing to this supply zone right here. You could see price react from this supply zone and then pushing back to this demand the major the higher time frame demand zone. So how can we be taking some buys to target this zone, the short-term buys, because at the moment we could expect price to come back for this zone. Okay, so looking at that, I will expect something similar to this, and then coming back for this zone here, then we can push higher. So we have this unmitigated shadow here. It could push us at least to that short-term supply zone, and then we try to look for some sales targeting this demand zone here. Okay, so besides that, you can consider joining these buys in case it happens. Okay, so yes, please. Yes, yeah, yeah. All right, let me explain this. So looking at all this, uh whenever we have a break of structure, it is already liquidity taken out. Okay, now considering the whole of this zone, considering the whole of this area has grabbed the liquidity, so it is high probability zone for what, for buys. However, these buys could be short term, right? Now I tried to examine this properly. I already see this as liquidity, this liquidity are taken out, and then you could directly see price just pushing all the way to this point. You could just see price coming back to this area, then we take our short term what, our short term buys. And remember, considering this fair value gap, was it filled halfway? By the way, let me check. It was huge, so we need to find out if it is covered by halfway. Let me look for my Fibonacci tool. Right. So let's check and see. It was almost filled halfway. However, considering the fact that some of you are trading what we call premium and discount, the PDRA, so we could definitely have price pushing back to this point, and then we can take our buys here, because the buys will be high probability since we are on the what, we are on the discount what zone. All right, so all right, so for that case, this one will be they might be scalps, if I may say, but you can capitalize on them in case you have some good reasons. Okay, so I'm looking for buys tomorrow here. I'm looking for buys at this point. Okay, So that is GBPUSD for me. Considering tomorrow, yeah, that is it. We could have the same idea on EURUSD. Let me check if we have the same idea on EURUSD. Let's check first on the H4. Let's check first on the H4. On the H4. All right. So right about here, this was a liquidity grab, if you can notice. Okay. So if that was a liquidity grab, definitely there was expectation for what? For a break of structure. And for that matter, having that one as a liquidity grab, this one meant sells. But again, why did the price push all the way to this point? So possibly we could be expecting price to react off this demand zone here. Why? Why do I regard that as a high probability demand zone? Because we had this break of structure. But let me first look to the left and we see. Yeah, that was a break of structure that happened over there. So if that was a break of structure, definitely that was the extreme what? That was the extreme structure over there, because we had inducement here. Okay. So what does that represent at this point? So the representation is like this was single leg all the way from this point. So like price did this, and then pushed all the way to this point, and then we would have expected price to give us a break of structure, but instead the price played around and then pushing back to this extreme demand zone. We could look for also swing buys from there. And for that matter, I'm looking at price pushing back. Yes, please. Okay. Considering it a single leg. Okay. Let me explain. So some of you will ask me, uh, what about this one? Isn't it a break of structure? But observing it carefully, that was also a liquidity grab, so it meant nothing at that point. Possibly this was a sell zone. Okay, so looking at this was a break of structure here. Why? Because we had inducement and then we started pushing higher. Okay, and pushing higher, we had a break of structure confirmed at this point. Now someone else will ask me, now what about this one? Someone will call this one inducement. But remember I told you inducement happens when we take out an independent candlestick. And in that case, it was this blue candle here. So it wasn't taken out, so we didn't have a pullback. Okay, if you recall very well, I told you inducement is a valid pullback. So there was no inducement at this point, and therefore, for someone who confirms this as a break of structure, it is wrong. Okay, so all these structures were minor, and that's why I told you this one becomes a single leg starting from this point all the way. Okay, so price still has all the authority to buy from all this range here. Am I clear on that? Am I clear on that? So at this point, we would have considered another leg from here. We would have considered another leg from here, pushing all the way upside in case we had a close above this point. So that one never happened, and for that matter, we don't confirm anything there. So price coming back to this demand zone confirms to us that we could have a reaction off this area. Now this area is very high probability because we grabbed liquidity here, which we look at as a inducement. Okay, so remember, inducement is the liquidity, don't forget. So at the same time, now we are looking at pushing price all the way to the upside. Okay, so that is the projection now on these two pairs. So they look similar, and at the same time you also see gold printing the same picture. So don't get surprised when you see these pairs starting to shoot high at the same time. Okay, gold is printing the same thing, GBPUSD is printing the same thing, EURUSD is printing the same thing. Okay, so all these three pairs are in their demand zones. Okay, the extreme demand zones. So that is it for these three pairs. But in case you have another pair you want us to look at, just drop that in the chat section, then we see how it goes. Drop it in the chat section, we see how it goes. Okay, someone is saying USD JPY. Okay, I'm gonna look into USD JPY. All right, so let me switch to USD JPY very fast. USD JPY is pushing to the upside aggressively, but again, looking at it, considering the higher time frames like I mean like 4 hour, we're gonna observe something together here. We are going to observe something together. So let's observe something. Okay, so looking at H4 for USD JPY, it's been a downtrend currently. Let's check and see how this downtrend ends. Okay, so looking at this, I will look at this one as a breakout structure. Okay, that one will be our breakout structure. Why? Because we had some inducement taken out at this point. Okay, we had that inducement, and then the price had to mitigate something as if it wasn't mitigated. But one important thing is liquidity, so have that one in mind. So price never really got to that supply zone, but pushed to the downside. So considering everything that happens here, you will realize that our inducement here was this. Now price failed to take out that inducement and started pushing to the downside. So if you try to consider this one as a breakout structure, you'll be wrong. Okay, but again, let's check here and see. Now, where is the inducement? Where is the inducement? So for the inducement here, let me first remove these ones. These are not time frame structures. We want to look at USD on the higher time frame perspective, such that we can be able to predict its next move. Now, looking at this point, the inducement on USD can be considered as this one. All right. So if that is the inducement, what are we looking at? We are looking at price giving us a downward move, though we could capitalize on this upward move considering time frames like 15 minutes. But for the 4 hour time frame, looking at everything that is happening here, we see USD JPY approaching this supply zone. Okay, so USD JPY could continue buying up to that area, and if we don't sell from that area, there's this other area here. Okay, I'm trying to draw all these areas because definitely the whole of this zone is high probability, because that is the extreme structure. So everything here will be considered internal structure. Okay, so this was single leg all the way from this point up until this area here. Now we are trying to mitigate something, then we can push lower. So that's what we are looking at on USD JPY. So if you are still looking for buys, have it in mind that we have a supply zone above, and we could see USD JPY reversing after hitting this area here. Okay, another option could be price sweeping this area. Okay, we can also see price pushing lower after sweeping this point here. Okay, so this high was created on August. Let me check. This was created on August. So this area here was created on August 24th. Oh, it was August 15th. Yeah. So it could serve as our high probability liquidity area. And on the other hand, for those who trade the trend line liquidity, we have it here. We have this trend line liquidity here. Okay. So that one was already grabbed, but now extending its viability, we shall be looking at this point. Okay. Of course, a lot of people are looking for it, for sales at this area, and then we need the liquidity to fuel the downward moves. So at this point down here, that's when we are going to have our break of structure. So you will realize that most of the players are trying to create swing trades at the moment. So we shall be expecting a break of structure down here, and we still move to the downside. So that is the H4 time frame, and then we head to the 1 hour time frame to now trade this move around this point. So looking at everything happening here, starting from this point, you will realize that price had this liquidity piling up here, and then we had to come back for it. After collecting it, we saw price pushing higher and giving us this buzz here. Okay, so as price is still pushing to the upside, what should we be expecting? So for now, price collected this form of liquidity here, and then started pushing higher, right? So as we pushed higher, we realize there is this break of structure here happening, and now having this break of structure, this one confirms to us that we are still pushing to the upside. Remember, we have this liquidity point here, so if we have serious sweeps there, we could try to scale in for the sell positions. Now at this point, looking to buy for the short terms, however, it is kind of lower probability. Now we want to see liquidity forming and then mitigating this entire zone, then we can push higher. So why am I marking this zone from here? Definitely everything here, this one is a high probability zone for buyers. Why? Because we collected the liquidity from this area, so everything here can be used as a high probability demand zone. So considering everything here, so you can refine this. And by the way, there is this single candle order block here. Okay, So that's what we are looking for, that the unmitigated shadow here. Remember, it is always high probability. It is fueled by the institutions. So in case we have price pushing below here before taking out this liquidity, then we can consider buys at this point. Okay, targeting this liquidity. So that is scenario number one. For scenario number two, if price gives us a 4-hour candle closing above this liquidity area, then what are we looking for? We are still now looking for price pushing to this supply zone. So we are still looking for buys. Okay, so this is the idea here. This is idea number two. If we have a candle closing above here, we are still considering the liquidity here. Okay, and then we push higher. All right, so it will depend on what price gives us. So because we shall look for liquidity here, and then we try pushing higher up until we mitigate this zone. But if we get a liquidity grab, so this is scenario number three. If we get a liquidity grab here, we are selling. Okay, if we get a liquidity grab, we shall try to scale in for some sales, definitely, and the target will be on the 4-hour extreme. Okay, so this one will be the target in case we happen to catch the sales. So most of the times it is not by mistake that market is taking a certain direction. Market always follows structure, and if at all your strategy isn't respected at a particular time, never disregard the fact that it works. Okay, just that at some point some other concept will be actively working while the other will be used for liquidity. Okay, at any point in time, trust me, the market will use you for liquidity. However much your win rate is high, or however much you trust your strategy. Okay, you just need to stick to your crafts. All right, so that was USD JPY on the bigger perspective, and definitely I'm seeing someone else talking about USD card. So let me switch to USD card very fast. We are switching to USD card. We see how USD card looks like. So looking at it from the bigger perspective, I'm also seeing a downward move. Yeah, I'm looking at price pushing lower. I don't know whether you can see that. I don't know whether you guys can see this. Let me show you. Let me first clean this chart and we see. Okay. So USD card is currently pushing to the downside. Okay. Considering this H4 structure, because I'm seeing this as boss. Okay. By the way, it is not by coincidence. You realize most pairs are either on the demand zone or supply zone. In fact, the higher time frame zone is. So this was inducement for this pair. This is the 4-hour time frame. So looking at this perspective, this one signals to us that if we have our inducement here, so if that is inducement, definitely what is the implication? What is the implication? We are looking at price now mitigating this area here. Now this candle is mitigated and it was a single candle order block. So we are looking at this unmitigated shadow here as a supply zone where we could potentially have these cells pushing all the way to the downside. So implying that at the moment we are still looking for buys to target that area. Okay, so we're gonna be having this downward move possibly. Okay, so this is H4 time frame, and that one signals that uh, you can potentially catch that sell. Yes, please. Yes. Now this order block has been the order block has already been violated if you notice. Okay, it has been violated, and on violating this order block, someone else would consider this as a sweep, but I'm disregarding it for the purpose that if we have this structure like this one will be the major swing point where you can expect a high probability liquidity grab. Okay, because that is the major pullback here. Okay, so in case you can take sales, then consider them from here. Okay, consider it from that point because these other pullbacks are minor. So this is the major pullback, so enough liquidity can be found here. And on the other hand, we have this, some people like to call it SMT. Yeah, some people like it's on SMT, but they are the same concepts, just that uh, we use different languages to address. Okay, so for a liquidity grab being high probability, that is the point. Otherwise, this one would be a good order block if at all it was respected, but then we see price violating it. So at this moment, I'm going to show you how you can potentially look for buys, because price now confirms to us that at least it can push to this point. Okay, this area. So we're going to switch over to the 15 minutes and let's try to see potentially how we can try to capitalize on such a move. Okay, so at the moment, I want to start from down here. I want to summarize these things so that you guys have an idea of what is really happening. So starting from this point here, definitely from the beginning, you will be targeting the inducement, right? So as you start down here, definitely you're looking for buys, okay? So as price takes out this point here, definitely we start looking for liquidity to push to the upside, okay? So in this case, you realize that after price taking out this point for inducement, then we see a mitigation at this point and then pushing higher. All right. So as we push higher, you realize that price is continuously breaking these structures. Okay. So as price breaks those structures, we are definitely looking for inducement here, or what we can call liquidity, and then we continue pushing all the way to the upside. So at the moment, you will realize that we have these demand zones here, and there is also this unmitigated shadow here. All right. But again, the high probability zone would be down here, but it is mitigated. Is it mitigated? Definitely, price can react from any of those points, and then you see price giving huge reactions here. Okay. And from that point, definitely this one would have also been a buying point. Okay, so all the way to this area. Now this area being a liquidity grab, this was a signal for the sales, and definitely trying to look for more for more confluences to push to the upside. Okay, because now we are targeting the inducement. So I'm seeing this unmitigated shadow here. It could have been the reason as to why price tried to push higher, though we never had that mitigation. So price then confirms this from here as a breakout structure. Now after confirming that breakout structure, definitely we are looking at this liquidity. Now we try to look for a demand zone at this point, and definitely you see price trying to sweep this area and then pushing higher. So from that area, now we are looking at a breakout structure at that point, and again we want to see price giving us liquidity, then we can push higher. So this was the liquidity point. Okay, so price takes it out, gives some reactions, and then was this a liquidity grab? Let's check. So this was a liquidity grab trying to signal for more sales. Okay, so pushing lower to mitigate something here. Okay, let's check what was that. We would have had this order flow, but again price tried to mitigate this entire structure. So price was trying to mitigate this entire structure. Remember, this is the whole structure we look at, just that we try to refine it to these points. Okay, so sometimes you may see price leaving out these zones, and that one does not disregard that your strategy works. Okay, so some other people will be looking at what we call a breaker block. So that's why I told you all strategies will work at some point in time. So if at all you trade with a breaker block, you saw this entry here. So price later on gave this breakout structure, and then we have the liquidity there, and again price now tries to come back all the way to this zone. Okay, so if you still trust your strategy, you have to see price sweeping this order flow, and then after sweeping that order flow, definitely, because our whole bias is upon taking out the inducement, and then we can try to look for more buys. Okay, so definitely we have price again breaking here, and again on breaking that point, definitely we are trying to push even higher. So for that matter, we are looking at price clearing all this liquidity here. Okay, such that now we can look at a mitigation at this point. Okay, and then we can consider more buys. All right, so I'm looking at this pair coming back to this point, and then we try to scale in some buys. Why are we buying from this point? Because we are targeting this liquidity point, if you recall, the H4 liquidity point. So that's why I'm considering buys in this case. Remember, I gave you one trick. Find out where price could be heading to, and then move along with it. So another scenario comes like this. We could rush to judge, but let's look at this clinically. Let's look at this carefully. Inside here, there is this liquidity. Okay, so if there is that liquidity, then it simply implies that this one also could do what? It could potentially hold the price and pushing it to the upside. Okay, so that's what at the moment, that's what we can first focus on. Target this liquidity here. Okay, So monitor this from the higher time frames like 4 hour, because we are expecting a reversal at any single point in time. So that is what we can look at for now. And definitely if price happens to break above this, then you can have your entries at break even in case you have this trade in. So that's it with USD card. I don't know whether there is another pair. So you guys these days you're very much interested in USD JPY. You have a lot of interest in that pair. I don't know why. I don't know why. But definitely that's what, okay, it's a good one. But recently it's been just wasting people's time if you realize like the past 3 to 4 months it's been tricky, but right now I think it's moving smoothly. I was also able to catch a trade on it last week. It was a buy. Yeah. All right. I think those are the pairs we have to look at. I'm not seeing any other inquiry. Okay. So as from that, in case there is a question, air it out, and then we call it a day.